Episode 1, The Story That Made Me. Life isn't filtered. Life isn't always pretty. It's raw, it's messy, it's heartbreak and healing, love and loss, and everything real in between. This is Appetite for Alchemy, the human experience unfiltered. Raw conversations about what it means to be real. I'm AK, a survivor, a seeker, and a storyteller. From trauma to truth, from chaos to healing, we talk about it all. Because no matter who you are, we've all survived something. Life has a way of breaking you open, sometimes gently, and sometimes in ways you never could have imagined. This podcast is about what happens after that. The part no one really talks about, the rebuilding, the becoming, the finding yourself again from the ground up. My name is AK, and this is Appetite for Alchemy. I want to start this podcast exactly where my own transformation really began. Not at the peak, not at the success, but at the moment life stripped everything away. Before I ever built a business, before I knew anything about healing or trauma or identity, I was a new mom, tired, hopeful, and trying to rebuild my life after having my first child. I had a job I had been loyal to for years. I went through pregnancy while working there. I gave them everything I had. And just a handful of months after coming back from maternity leave, I was laid off. It knocked the air out of me. I had a baby under 1 year old. I had bills. I had fear. And I had a moment of clarity that came through the panic. I can't keep giving my time and my energy to building someone else's wealth. Something in me clicked that day, not because I was confident, not because I had a plan, but because I didn't have a choice. Section 2, building from nothing. So I started with what I could, which honestly wasn't much. I built a mobile teeth whitening business out of the trunk of my car. Literally. I would drive to people's houses, their offices, their kitchens, wherever someone wanted their teeth whitened. I'd show up. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. There was something empowering about that, about creating something from scratch, about knowing that every dollar that came in was from my own 2 hands. But there was also a limit. I realized pretty quickly that if I wanted this to grow and if I wanted to be present for my child, I needed something that didn't depend on me physically showing up every single time. So I thought, what if I could put this into people's hands instead? What if I could create a product that people could use at home? That idea changed everything. Section 3, Smile Sciences. I went out and found an investor, partnered with a woman who had been supplying my teeth whitening products, and together we created Smile Sciences. We built it from scratch, just the 2 of us, and it took off. And it grew. And then it grew some more. And before long, what I had started from the trunk of my car turned into a company worth somewhere around $10 million. You hear that number and think, wow, you made it. But sometimes success shows up right before the biggest fall of your life. Section 4, The Betrayal. In 2018, everything I had built, everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for my child was ripped away from me. My business partner stole the entire company, cut me off financially, took every dime, every asset, every piece of what I helped create. And she didn't stop there. She went after my character, my reputation, my custody, my identity as a mother, my mental stability, my safety. She launched smear campaigns, made over 100 social media videos about me. Photographers followed me. Neighbors got involved. They put cameras on my house. There were people who physically attacked me, people who may have been hired to do so. I watched my car get towed out of my driveway. I watched my world collapse piece by piece. I had moments where I truly wondered if I would survive, not metaphorically, but literally. And there were days where I didn't recognize myself, days where everything I believed about who I was fell apart. Section 5. The breakdown, the beginning. Losing everything, your money, your safety, your reputation, your sense of control, does something to you. It strips you down to nothing but the truth of who you are. And for a while, I didn't like what I saw because I didn't know who I was without the armor. I was lost, confused, traumatized, disconnected from my own identity. There was no map, no guide, no one coming to save me. So I had learned how to save myself. And slowly, very slowly, I began to rebuild. Not the businesses, not the external stuff, but me. Piece by piece, truth by truth, breath by breath. That was the beginning of my healing journey, of understanding trauma, of reconnecting with my body, of finding support through plant medicine, somatic work, yoga, and spiritual practices that helped me come back to myself. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast, but it was real. I call it my rebirth, not because something magical happened, but because I survived something that was meant to destroy me. And I walked out of it a completely different person. Section 6. Why this podcast exists. This podcast is born from that place. Appetite for Alchemy is about the part of life where things fall apart, where you lose your identity, your illusions, your security, where you face the thing you never thought you'd have to survive. It's about what happens after the breakdown, when you're forced to go inward, to rebuild, to figure out who you are, when everything familiar is gone. This podcast is for anyone who has ever been blindsided by life, anyone who has been betrayed, abandoned, broken, misunderstood, or pushed to the edge, anyone who has lost something they thought they couldn't live without. It's for the people who are healing from trauma, big or small. People rebuilding after financial devastation, divorce, grief, identity loss. People who are tired of pretending they're fine when maybe they're not. It's for the ones who are trying to find their way back to themselves. Because surviving something doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. It makes you resourceful. It makes you resilient in ways you don't even realize. This show is here to remind you that you're not alone in any of it. Section 7. Why I'm the one telling these stories. I'm not a guru. I'm not someone with all the answers. I'm someone who's been in the trenches. Someone who has had everything stripped away. Someone who has had to rebuild from the inside out. I've lived through things that forced me to face myself. My trauma, my patterns, my fears, my truth, and through that work, I learned this: there is nothing more powerful than a human being who refuses to stay broken. That's why I'm here. Not to preach, not to teach from a pedestal, but to sit with you in the realness of what it means to be human. Section 8. What to expect from this podcast. Here's what you can expect. Honest, raw, solo episodes talking about trauma healing, rebuilding, identity, resilience, plant medicine, relationships, and all the messy parts of being human. Interview episodes with real people surviving real things, sharing what they went through, how they got back up, and what they learned. Conversations that don't sugarcoat anything. No bypassing, no pretending, just truth without armor. Stories that remind you you're not alone, you're not broken, and your story matters. If life has ever knocked you on your ass, if you have ever been lost or scared or stripped down to nothing, if you've ever had to rebuild from the pieces, this podcast is for you. We all have the power to alchemize our experiences, even the ones that nearly destroy us. Survival is a superpower, and healing is possible, even when the path feels impossible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my story. And welcome to Appetite for Alchemy.